All right, so we're gonna have to start again. This is oh yeah. Oi oi oi. Okay, let's go back. That's why it's always good to have someone help you out. Uh, okay, I'm gonna do this. All right, hello and welcome to the first of many live streams that we will be showing forth every Wednesday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern. We'll be talking about your brain, dementia, and the things that really matter when it comes to helping you as the individual layperson know what to do to take control of the fate of your brain. And I feel that there are a lot of gaps that I've noticed. And by the way, my name is Dr. David Ajibade. I forgot to mention that. So I am the director of the Brain and Body Foundation, and I will be hosting a weekly live stream called "Keeping Your Marbles," which is pretty much the flagship signature speech that I give almost everywhere I go. It is an intro into our work, but more importantly, it's an intro into what you can do, what you need to know and do to keep your brain healthy and strong. So we'll be talking about everything from what it takes to prevent dementia, but more than that, what it takes to strengthen your brain, to keep your brain healthy and strong, and what happens or what you can do if you or your loved one has have has started experiencing memory decline. And I have to say this, there is a lot that can be done. It doesn't matter how advanced it is. We have to remember that the brain and the body have huge capacity and potential to fix, heal, repair itself. And many times when things happen, it's because things negative or bad happen, is because we have neglected to take care of our brains and bodies, and we've neglected to know, or we don't know what can be done. And a lot of it, what can be done is giving your brain and body the resources and the tools that they need to fix the problem that is going on. Now, obviously, I'm not going to be Pollyannish about it and say that everything can be reversed. No, not everything can be reversed, but certainly a lot more than what we have given the brain credit for can be reversed. So we'll be talking about these things, and we'll be getting some really great speakers who are masters, experts in their fields, who will come and be giving us, contributing, adding value to this whole discussion. The hope, of course, is to build a community of individuals who understand what the brain needs and who are equipped to teach others. I always like to talk about there are 5 different categories of people, coming from the least knowledgeable and also the very, very scared and petrified of dementia, who are basically, um, yeah, petrified, really is the way to put it. And then all the way to those who not only have taken control of their own brain health, the fate of their brains, but also they know how to teach and empower others to do the same. So our goal is to take people from level 1 to level 5, so to speak. More about that later. All right, so let's get into it. This is going to be pretty much a crash course in dementia. So I'm going to get started with that. I hope you'll see my screen. Anyway, we'll find out soon enough. All right, there are about 7 points we're going to go through. And number 1, obviously, is taking responsibility. We'll talk about the different things. So this is, if you're watching this afterwards, you can freeze this. You can freeze or pause this video and then look at the different things I'm talking about. But let's get into it. Responsibility. Your brain, the health of your brain is not the doctor's responsibility, of your physician, healthcare professional, whatever. It's not your spouse's, it's not your child's, it is not the government's, and it is certainly not God's responsibility. It is your responsibility. And unless you know and understand the principles, the laws that govern brain health, you will, for the most part, and we're seeing more and more people at younger and younger ages fall prey to the things that damage people's brains and eventually lead to dementia. So I'm hoping that you will take it seriously and accept this responsibility. Let's talk about your brain, because that is where it starts from. And I'm not going to give you this extensive neuroscientific discussion. We're just going to talk about some basic things. Your brain is like the head honcho, the generalissimo. It's the commander in chief. It controls all your body processes, including heart rates, respiration, digestion, sleep, and so on. So this is just a little, very simplified overview. Starting from the right, it's well, this should be the last thing because repair and maintenance, you don't really think about them until things go wrong. So subconscious processing, like I said, that's all the breathing, the digestion, and so on. Cognition, executive function, that's the highest function of the brain other than speech. Human beings are the only one that can speak and converse and can manipulate and use words. So it requires a greater level of complexity, in my opinion, than any other thing in the brain. And then, of course, movement, emotional regulation, and so on, memory, and so on. We understand these things. These are things we take for granted. But to do these things, the brain requires a lot of input. It's not just food. It's not just exercise. We require nature to be part of nature. We require sunlight, obviously, oxygen and water, and so on. But sunlight and nature are so important that people tend to take to shall we say, discountenance. Deep sleep, very important. It's not just having long hours of sleep, but the quality of the sleep matters. And we discuss each of these in different areas. In addition to the physical things that we need, these are other things. Social interaction is very important. Novelty, challenge, intellectual discussion, and intercourse. Stimulation, all these different things. Now, some obviously are more important than others, for sure. I mean, oxygen, if you don't have enough, if your brain is not getting this oxygen, you can forget any intellectual discussion whatsoever. So obviously there are weights, we can weight each things, but to have the optimal brain, I believe that you have to have some degree of each of these things on the right side. So what happens if your brain is not getting the resources? And by resources, I'm primarily talking about energy supply. If the energy supply is low, and we get into detail about what energy does for the brain, but if energy supply is low, everything seems to fall apart. So there isn't any signal exchange of information. There's still exchange, but it's affected, it's compromised. You have sleep problems, mood problems, memory problems, obviously, a whole bunch of things. And that's really when you begin to realize that the brain is so important. So one of the things that I really emphasize is you've got to do something every day to ensure that your brain's energy levels, and this becomes more and more important as the decades pass, because by nature, the brain's energy supply drops as with increase in age. So this is something that you have to be proactive about. You have to know what it takes to boost energy supply in the brain. Again, you can pause this and you can take a screenshot, whatever you want to do. So having said that, we can understand to some degree what happens in dementia. It's not just that, and this is what we've been made to believe, even as doctors, and of course the general population, is that at a certain point, for whatever reason, these certain proteins appear in your brain, and they multiply and they choke out the good brain cells and destroy the brain cells, and the brain dies, leading to dementia. And I feel a lot of steps have been skipped. And tell you what, let us talk about that. So I usually in my courses, or when I'm speaking into audiences, I talk about two mics, mic A and mic B. Mic A, born out of wedlock, maybe his mom was an alcoholic, was a sickly child, given for adoption. It ended up in foster homes and kind of like was thrown around from one foster home to the other. Eventually had a family, suffered. And you know what happens in some cases there was abuse. Went to high school, didn't really do too much. Played football, had a few hits, bumps on the head, concussions, recovered from those. Eventually got into the army because he couldn't get into college, and decided, well, what the heck, he's just going to go into the army. Well, he goes into the tough part. He's deployed into some militarized zones, and he is involved in a lot of conflict at the war front. He has experiences a few concussions, blast injuries, because it was always handling ammunition. So blast injuries are not direct injuries in which there's a bullet hitting you or anything. You're just near where the rockets are being fired, and so that does some kind of micro shaking. Anyway, blast injuries, that's what it is. Part of the issue too was that he saw a lot of his friends die, and he suffered PTSD from the grief and loss of his comrades. He comes back after several deployments, finds out his wife has left him with his kids. It throws him into depression and alcohol abuse. He finds it difficult to get a job. Anyway, he struggles basically throughout life. That's Mike A. Mike B, on the other hand, is born to a nice, wealthy, or a middle class, upper middle class family. He's raised well. He goes to good schools. He's supported by the community. He gets a good job, marries, has a stable home and family, enjoys good food, and basically he contributes well to society. Now, let me ask you this. When Mike A and Mike B reach the age of 65, which of them do you think is most likely or is more prone to having dementia? Mike A, the one who had a hard life, or Mike B, the one who had life easier? Obviously, the answer is Mike A. All right. And that brings us to a point that says that and that point is this, that a lot of times what people don't realize is that dementia is the end result of, in many ways, injuries, insults to the brain over a period of time, decades for that matter. So that's why, let me bring up this. There's a picture of a normal brain and a dementia brain. The dementia brain, or the Alzheimer's brain, has lost 30% of its brain volume compared to the normal brain. All right, let's get into that. This is what I would say is my favorite definition for dementia, and this is from the Alzheimer's Association. Alzheimer's disease is a degenerative brain disease that is caused by complex brain changes. And this is the key word here, following cell damage. It leads to dementia symptoms that gradually worsen over time. Again, that's the key. So I kind of like break it down into a pictorial view. So according to that definition, and this is the best definition I've seen. A lot of other definitions tend to just say it's caused by plaques, and that's it. But this takes it a step further and says it's caused by cellular damage. So cellular damage, complex brain changes, obviously that includes formation of plaques and tangles. There's degeneration, so the brain cells dying, and then of course you see that as memory loss or cognitive problems. But here's my problem with that. It seems to make some, shall we say, presumptive leaps. It seems to assume some things. I mean, cellular damage, most people by the time they turn 40, they've had quite a few bumps or bruises in their brains, but somehow they've recovered from it. Why is it that some people progress to dementia and others do not? I feel that those are gaps that need to be addressed. So I had my staff kind of create those gaps. But the first gap is the one before the number one. It's what is causing the damage. And so I've come up with what has now become a popular talk called Dementia's Dirty Dozen. I have a free ebook if you're interested, where we talk about the different things that cause damage to the brain cells. And they all start with the letter I. I thought I was going to have a little fun with it. But most people can relate to it, especially healthcare professionals when they see it. It's a series of things. Usually it's never one thing. It's usually a combination of things that are happening, interacting with themselves and with the brain, and basically building up over time. The sad thing is that most times healthcare professionals do not recognize this problem as it's developing, and therefore they do not act in time to preempt or prevent it. And so that's why we're trying to instruct, and also trying to reach healthcare professionals to help them recognize these risk factors and therefore do something about them before they become too much of a problem. And then you have this picture here, which shows Dementia's Dirty Dozen. These are the red arrows all around, affecting the brain, causing damage, obviously the brain is a living being, so the brain is going to react to that damage in varying ways. There's almost always inflammation. There's the activation of microglia, which has some of the sentries, or the police, or the armies, the soldiers in the brain that's try to keep invaders out. Sometimes they get trigger happy, and there's what is known as collateral damage or friendly fire, which when they damage their own brain cells. But that's another thing for another story. Basically, it's a constant, continual thing over decades, like I said, that eventually leads to what is known as dementia, or in some cases, Alzheimer's disease. Not all dementias are Alzheimer's disease, by the way. Dementia is an umbrella term for a lot of different things. Alzheimer's disease, yes, it has a large proportion. It occupies a large proportion of all kinds of dementia, but it is not the only one. And if you see here, you see significant energy depletion, and then you see mild cognitive impairment. That's the step before dementia. By the time a person has full-blown dementia, they have lost about 60%. So they are operating at just 40% of what the brain, the energy quota the brain requires. So the brain is normally supposed to operate at 90 to 100% of energy supply. Because of all these different things happening, it eventually is left with 40%. And that is when you begin to see real problems. Now, before then, you've already seen, you might have noticed a lot of problems going on, maybe glitches here, mood swings and all that. But that the individual, maybe your spouse or loved one, has been able to live, so to speak, independently. But when it gets to 40% energy levels, that's not going to happen again. It's gonna he or she becomes a threat to himself and probably to others as well. So that's in a nutshell. This is really what happens. And so this is the complete picture. Number one, the first stage is this bombardment attacks on the brain, causing cellular damage. And eventually, again, after over decades, there's energy depletion. There's complex brain changes to try and deal with this damage and try to recover, like I said, like we showed in the last diagram. Degeneration and, of course, worsening symptoms. This is the progression. So now that you understand the genesis, what happens, how do we keep, so to speak, our marbles? How do we prevent these things from happening? Well, it's pretty straightforward, but I like to use a picture. Pictures are worth 1,000 words, like they say. And the analogy I like to use is that of a fortress, right? So within the fortress, the fortress is not the brain. The brain is really the human activity, reproduction, farming, economic activity, administration, and so on. These are people within the boundaries of the world that produce, that make a community or make a kingdom work. The walls would be like the skull and the vents and specialized structures within the brain that help to protect the neurons. So the neurons are the people, then everything else are the structural and supportive functions. I'm not going to waste too much time here, but what I've seen, and this is what I came up with after speaking initially, I was looking for Black people. Really wanted to talk to Black people because we have twice the rate of dementia. And after doing the rounds and speaking at different senior centers, I noticed three things. Initially, these three things were made for us. I came up with them because of my work with Black people. Then I realized it works for everybody as well. So the three things must be in place for someone to come with dementia. One, come down with dementia. One, greater attacks. We explain what those attacks are. Weaker defenses or fewer protections. So think about those walls around the building, I said, and each of those walls represent different supportive structures in the brain. And then number three is lack of prompt, early, and effective medical intervention. Many times I saw that even when people began to fault, their brains began to falter, and they knew they were faltering, they did not seek medical intervention, and so it just festered and got worse and worse and worse and became full-blown dementia. But this applies again, like I said, to other things. So the key to, and I want to, again, this is to make it very, very simple. The key to preventing dementia is to reduce the attacks, strengthen your defenses, and then work intelligently with your healthcare provider. Know what questions to ask, know what tests to ask for, and so on. This is really what it comes down to. I mean, it is as simple as that. The challenge, obviously, is not easy. The challenge is knowing where the attacks are coming from, or how to strengthen your defenses, what those defenses are in the first place, how to strengthen those defenses, and of course, knowing how to get the tests done. And so this is the picture I had. There's another picture that I had really that had the opposite of this. Anyway, and what causes damage is many more red arrows than green arrows. So our goal is to deliberately, and this can only be done purposefully. You're not going to get, you are not going to get this done just by, just living your normal life. These are just things that you have to go out of your way to do. In fact, I strongly encourage people to have a plan of action that is tailored towards themselves, tailored to them and their own unique situations in life. So women would have probably a different plan than I would. White woman, black man, very different. There are obviously some basic things everybody needs to do, but we face different risk factors. And we discuss this in our talks and in our programs. So when it comes to, this is the next thing. If someone already has dementia, we're not talking about prevention anymore. We're talking about support. And again, I do not believe that once a person has dementia, certain things cannot be addressed. I think there's a lot that can be done. A lot can be addressed to improve the person's health and also to improve the life of the caregiver, because that's another issue that we tend to neglect. We don't think in terms of the caregiver themselves, who are going through a lot of things, including grief and guilt, and then loss, and then they're old themselves, so maybe they have a chronic disease themselves, so they're struggling. So we need to have a program that not just addresses the primary sufferer, which is the person living with dementia, but also the secondary sufferer, the one who has to bear the burden of taking. And I forgive me if I use the word burden. I mean, I know these are your loved ones, so but it can be a stressful thing for everybody who is taking care of someone with dementia. All right, so these two, in my opinion, have to be really, really addressed. The care and support for those living with dementia and those supporting them, but also, and in my opinion, probably more important, is to do something about that brain. How can we improve that brain? The structure has been damaged, yes. It's probably not functioning like it should. Probably there are toxins or things that are making it worse and worse and worse. Surely in this 21st century, there's something that can be done to turn the tide. And in my experience with working with the Brain and Body Foundation and treating brain disorders for over a decade now, it's really clear that there's a lot that can be done. So just keep listening. Well, we're not going to treat that here because we don't have the time for it. But anyway, so speaking about dementia support, and this is what we're going to be talking about in our live streams. We're going to be bringing in the legal experts to talk about the aspect of taking care of the legal aspects. Then the home care experts who maybe hire assistants to go and live or sit or support, take the burden of the loved one. Occupational care, health care, home modifications, people who help people move, transitions, people, real estate people, mortgage brokers, and so on. So we're going to give this whole 360-degree view for our listeners, our viewers in our community, on really what it takes to have a good support. And of course, we'll show you what is available. I mean, the Alzheimer's Association is a great resource that has all kinds of supportive structures for people, and they can call them 24/7, I believe. So let's talk about the biological support, which is really where I come in. This is my sweet spot. Like I said, and I've said it over and over again, and it's my experience too, that there's a lot that can be done to improve. Maybe not complete recovery, but certainly there's a lot that can be done to improve the health. And I have this picture in front of you that basically kind of like gives a depiction of the different things that we address. Number one, and this is something we failed at initially because we just didn't know, but soon afterwards we figured it out, that you've got to restore energy, restore the brain's energy supply. That is probably the most important thing. Nothing else is going to work well. And of course, you have to address blood flow, improve the health of the arteries, which supply nutrients and other things to the brain. You've got to address the brain, the other structures in the brain, including the protective structures. And hormones are so important, especially for women, much more, I mean, important for both men and women. But because women experience a steep decline in things like estrogen and progesterone at the time or around the time of menopause, called perimenopause, it is especially important for women. Immune function is important, gut support, detoxification, those are also important. So maybe I should tell a story real quick. So I have different stories because I treat people with the most severe to people just dealing with mild memory problems. And I remember this man. He's in the UK. They reached out to me. Their family reached out to me, so I was able to get some things and ship over to them. And I remember the wife of this individual, she had complaints. I mean, what she noticed was that because they were in the UK, they're from Nigeria, so then they speak my language, which is Yoruba, and the nurse who's white would come in, and he would be speaking Yoruba to her, and his wife would come in, and he would speak English to her, which was totally inappropriate, and then he would be watching TV, a TV show, and then he would be reacting to the characters in the TV. So he would get upset and shout at them as if they were talking to him. So it was totally out of. I mean, the wires. I would say the wires were crossing, to use a colloquial term. It was the connections weren't working like they should. And long story short, we sent him stuff and showed his wife how to use them. We don't use medications, by the way. We all use strictly use nutrients and nutrient supplements. And within a week, she said he was now addressing each person properly. He spoke Yoruba to his wife. He spoke English to his white nurse. And during the TV, he did no longer react it as if they were talking to him. He was watching. He was able to enjoy his TV shows, and everybody was able to enjoy themselves because he had calmed down. So that was really interesting, and we have tons of stories. So bottom line is that if you support the brain, it will repair itself. It will fix its own problems. The challenge is knowing what to do and what nourishment or what nutrients to give it. All right, so I'm going to move on to the next one. Action steps. I know it's a lot of information, and people get drowned in the information. So I like to help people narrow down to a few important action steps they need to take. And I mean 7. So number one, sugar is a big problem. Processed foods are a big problem. That's why dementia is a bigger problem in developed worlds than it is in third world countries like Africa, like those in Africa, where we're exposed to more natural foods and we don't have all the processed foods. As a matter of fact, junk food, I'm not going to mention any of these, any brands, but those are luxury items in my country. All right. Luxury items. Over here, they're the cheapest of the cheapest. But over in Nigeria, they're luxury items. So it's not available to the poor and middle class for the most part. So we don't really have to deal with those. Now we have other problems that kind of like increase our risk for dementia. But by and large, sugar and processed foods are not as big as the rest. Number 2, you want to increase protein and healthy fat intake. And I know there's a lot of controversy about this, but the brain does need amino acids. It needs healthy fats. Sleep quality and quantity, very important, and we'll probably be doing extensive studies and discussions on that for women, especially because we're concerned about hip fractures. White women, especially black women, not as much because black people tend to have denser bones, but white women for sure tend to have a higher risk of hip back fractures. So you need to have, especially those of you in retirement homes and facilities, take advantage of the gym person. Have a gym coach teach you how to strengthen your muscles. You should be able to rise from a seated position without support, but the muscles around your hip joints, those tend to get weak, and because they tend to get weak, the bones and the joints themselves tend to get weak, increasing the risk for fragility and low bone density. So that needs to be addressed. There are number 5, where there are different blood levels of different things. I have about 7 tests that people should do, including hormone testing, including vitamin D, certain vitamins, vitamin D3 and vitamin B12. Those need to be optimal for a healthy brain. And again, that's a different discussion. I think it's also important, just like people have coaches for their business, coaches for their family and all that, I think you need to have a brain health coach. And because you need a plan. As I said at the beginning, you need to have an action plan that is personalized for you. Not everybody has the same action plan. So, and that's where people like me come in. I'm just going to, with your permission, I'm just going to say a few things about our work and what we do. Obviously, number 1 is speaking. I really enjoy doing classes and free seminars for the most part. I mean, I need to get paid for this eventually, but anyway, it's a delight to go out there and give speeches and to talk about, just highlight, to raise awareness. If people take one thing away, it's usually, I say, they need to take vitamin D3, K2. There was an Alzheimer's Association study not too long ago where they found out that you could reduce your risk of dementia by as much as 40% if your vitamin D levels were normal. Think about that. That's a huge number. Which begs the question, which other nutrients are out there that we don't know about that could help protect the brain? If vitamin D3 alone, that's one nutrient out of hundreds of different kinds of nutrients. If vitamin D3 alone can reduce your risk by over 40%, then could there be others? Anyway, another story for another time. We'll be doing like I said, we'll be doing the weekly live streams with different guests. We'll be sending out emails on different topics. I'm very, very, very active on LinkedIn. I usually have my staff sometimes post things for me, but for the most part, I come up with thoughts and I post them. So it'd be good to follow me on that platform. Dr. David Ajibade is the tag. Is the hash? What is it? Hashtag the @sign. Anyway, now what is also very important is that we're creating like an online repository, like a library, where we'll do videos on all these different topics that I've kind of like just thrown at you. We're going to be doing videos, short videos, longer videos, where we treat these in depth, but also create handouts, provide you with the slides, just like these slides here, provide you with the different slides so you can actually take your time and go through these things. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to us. So this will be available as a sort of membership thingy where you have benefits, privileges that the average person does not have. So if you would like to know more about it, just reach out to us. We shall be launching before the end of the month. That is a promise. I've been saying this for a whole year, but now we've actually put the pieces in place. So yes, by March 1st, we are good to go for sure. And these are some of the courses, the modules that we'll be treating. Like I said, tons of videos, tons of audios, handouts, and different things for each of these modules. All right, questions. I guess this is a recording. This is not a live stream, but it'll be placed on the live stream, so you're going to see it eventually. Thank you for your time. Yes, before I forget, we do give free 15-minute consultations to the general public. Where we can just answer a few questions and maybe help allay your fears, maybe help clarify some things, give you some direction. Obviously, I have to be careful in just dishing out medical advice without some kind of contractual agreement. I am not licensed to practice in the US. I'm licensed to practice in Nigeria. And I have patients around the world. So everybody has to sign some kind of waiver if you do want to get engage my services as a health coach. I have to say that. So no, I am not masquerading as a doctor in the US. I am a brain health coach. And like I said, I don't use medications at all. I use only nutrients and supplements. Batman doesn't use guns. I don't use medications. Nothing against the medications. I just have found out what works, given the circumstances in which I am. I'm not. I mean, you to give out medications, you have to have access to the clinic, the hospitals, so just in case anything goes wrong, you can do the intervention that is needed. So I do not want to deal with that. So I just give supplements and nutrients. And the worst that can happen is maybe it didn't work, and so we'll try something else. All right, there's my information here. My I don't know why I'm giving out my phone number, but there it is. So you can check. So it's preferable you just send me a text, because I usually don't pick up the phone if I don't recognize the number, which I'm sure you can understand. We have two websites. The Brain and Body Foundation is really where we do our charity work, especially in Nigeria. We will expand it to third world countries as well. So with that said, thank you so much for your time. It's been great, and by the grace of God, we shall continue to pump out this information every single week. Till then, let me see if I can. I just hope this thing worked, because I'm not too excited about doing this again. All right, so let's see. 42 minutes. Okay, so thank you, folks. I hope you had a good time watching this. Oh, I really hope the slides were showing. Okay, folks, I'm going to end this here. God bless. Take care. Bye.